If you're wondering what an independent medical examination is, this is the video that you want to listen to so you can learn about Georgia law and how IMEs might affect you and your case. Hi, I'm Michael Coker and I'm a local personal injury lawyer here in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And today we're going to be talking about independent medical examinations. It's not really something that you see all too often in personal injury cases, but they do come up from time to time. So if you're wondering what they are or what it might mean for your specific case, this is definitely a video that you want to watch. Independent medical examinations are something that a lot of times defense lawyers use to ultimately get their doctor to take a look at you to determine whether or not you truly are injured. They're used in very few cases, but they are still used. Independent medical examinations were very popular when I first started my law practice. When I first got into the law 15 or so years ago, you saw them a lot more often than you do now. But basically, an independent medical examination is when the insurance defense lawyer asks the court to compel the plaintiff or require the plaintiff to show up at a certain doctor's office so that they can do what's called an independent medical evaluation. Now, the law says that the medical provider needs to be unbiased and needs to be truthful and not, lie about the true state of the condition of the plaintiff. But the reality is that most of these doctors are very conservative in their causation findings. And so what they'll end up doing is they'll say, and many of them will say, yes, this person is hurt, but there's no objective evidence that this injury was caused by the accident. And so that's what you see the most. Most of these doctors, you're not going to show up and have them say you're not injured. Now, it does happen, but most of them will agree that you have some injury, but they will say that that injury was caused by something different or was caused by just degeneration or old age. That seems to be the most common thing that you see after an IME. But these are not treatment providers. So independent medical examination physicians are not ones that basically treat you as a doctor. They are being paid by the insurance company to give their opinion on an evaluation. And so that's typically what you see in these cases is these are, again, doctors who know who paid them and want to continue to get cases from them. And so they are paid a large amount of money to basically deliver their opinion, which generally tends to favor the insurance company. But unfortunately, in the state of Georgia, in most cases, you have to do them. You don't have a choice. But if this is something you're worried about on a case, again, I want to reiterate, this is a very rare thing. It really does not happen all that often. And so if it's happening in your case, talk to your lawyer, or if you think you need a lawyer based on somebody requesting an IME, an independent medical examination, obviously give us a call. We'd be more than happy to talk to you. But IMEs are not something that happen too often. What is much more common is that insurance companies will often hire doctors, particularly radiologists, to do an evaluation of the radiology films. So what this means is, as part of the case, there's a thing called discovery, where we are required by law to turn over all of your medical records, all of your MRI films, CT films, x-rays, and often physicians will review those records and those films and come up with their own diagnosis. And so this has become very popular where certain insurance companies will hire certain doctors, like I said, many of them are orthopedic doctors or radiologists, to come in to read your MRI scan films or to read your x-rays and to say that, either you're not injured or the injury is not there that you're claiming, or two, that it was caused by something besides the accident. Because in Georgia, we have a thing called proximate causation, which means that the plaintiff has the burden of proof, meaning they have to prove that those injuries were caused by the accident at issue. And so when you have that obligation, of course, even if your doctors step in and say, yes, this was caused by this accident, they might still send it off to their doctor who will say that those injuries were not caused by the accident. And so that's another thing that you definitely need to be on the lookout for is if you have a insurance company that's asking to submit your records over to a physician for review, it's probably time to get a lawyer involved. It's probably time to have a conversation with an experienced accident attorney who can tell you a little more intel about that specific doctor and what this might mean for your case. And so that's something you definitely need to look at, that if let's say you're not represented by an attorney. Let's say that you're in a situation where you've maybe submitted a lot of medical records to the insurance company, and they've ultimately told you, hey, no, we think that we would like to send this off to a physician for an evaluation. That should make your kind of antennas go up. You should definitely kind of take a step back and say, maybe it's time for me to talk to a lawyer, because if they're sending your records off to a doctor, you want to know that that doctor's unbiased, that they're going to be fair in their assessment. And the only way to know that is to hire an experienced lawyer who knows a lot of these doctors, knows a lot of these orthopedics, knows a lot of these radiologists, who can go back to that insurance company and say, yeah, we know that that's what your doctor said, but we also know that that doctor testifies for you regularly. He's not known as somebody who is very pro-plaintiff, meaning doesn't support injured people. And so therefore, we're not going to discount our client's case based on that opinion. Because sometimes those are submitted either for the jury's purposes of discounting their opinion before the accident or at trial, but also sometimes it's to try to get you to water down your settlement expectations by basically sending you a report from a doctor who says that these injuries were not from this accident. So what's the takeaway on this? The first thing that I will tell you is it's best to never send your medical records to the insurance company unless you have a lawyer. Because again, a lawyer's going to know what records they're entitled to, what records they're not entitled to. And so I would always recommend you speak with them, but never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, sign a medical release to allow the insurance company to get whatever they want, because that just opens the floodgates and allows them to request any document that they ever wanted to related to your medical, going back 20, 30 years. And so all of a sudden, you might have been in high school, you might have wanted to and visited a chiropractor, something that's completely irrelevant to the issue that you're dealing with today. And all of a sudden they're requesting those records and holding that up and saying, oh, sorry, we're not going to pay you for your back injury because when you were 17, you went and saw this chiropractor. So never, ever sign an authorization. At least that's my opinion. And maybe there's circumstances that it would be appropriate, but I always tell my clients, hire a lawyer. Let them be the one that can tell the insurance company what records they should and should not receive. And that's a much better practice to make sure that your attorney is not only protecting your privacy, but also protecting any medical information that just is not relevant to this particular case. And so that's just some tips about independent medical examinations and medical records and items that you might have to deal with if an insurance company comes to you and says, hey, sign this authorization. And so all of these things are important and things that you need to remember moving forward if you have a particular case. So if you like getting these updates, it's about Georgia law or just getting important information, definitely like and subscribe to this podcast. But until next time, thanks for watching.